Why do some religious people seem to lack the complete ability to understand how some people don't believe? I'm in a religious debate group on Facebook. What has fascinated me is that quite a few of the people on the religious side seem to simply not be able to grasp the concept of not believing. They don't seem to understand how it works, so to speak. They can't wrap around the concept and mindset of simply not believing in a higher power. Questions like how does it work if someone doesn't believe? And how can someone not believe? People who have religious family and friends who are similar. Do you have an explanation to this phenomenon? I'm atheist. Or maybe agnostic, as I can't be 100% sure. But I have no problem imagining what it's like to believe in a God. And I most certainly understand why some people choose to believe, as it does certainly bring some comfort to their life. Too many answers are focusing on the religious aspect. But really, it's broader than that. It applies to any type of firmly held belief. You see it in politics all the time, and I think is responsible for much of the political hostility today. And it's simply, if something makes 100% complete sense to you, and to you it can't possibly be any other way, it's easy to think that it must be the same for everyone. So if it's so obvious to me, it must be just as obvious to everyone, right? So if it's obvious to everyone, then how can someone else possibly not see things the same way? In politics, people unfortunately tend to assume that it must be because the other person is either stupid or evil. In this case, they are instead responding with bafflement, which is at least a better response. I'd figure a lot has to do with upbringing. When it comes to religion, I guess parents, place of worship, or community establishes a view of life or worldview that creates a deity, deities, spiritual entities, or even an omnipotent being as being unseen rulers or forces in the world. Sort of like learning basic ABCs and words. Children come to learn these concepts and it's framed into their mind. Like going to a happy place after death. Or if you're bad, you go to a bad place or receive punishment. So, those essentials are formed and built upon without question. There are things that interfere in that process for some, like individual skepticism, critical thinking, personal experience, life changes, and meeting people from other faiths or beliefs. You have young people who fall into all of these categories. For the type of people that you are specifically describing, they are in the first group, unbothered by skepticism, life experience, or other faiths and beliefs. They'd see other faiths or beliefs, maybe even unbelievers or people without faith or religion, as being fractured or unsaved. Their worldview has already established a kingdom with a ruler or rulers, who need followers to rescue other people. Their frame of mind is emotionally and psychologically shackled to one perspective. They are incapable or not at the stage to empathize with a person that has opposite beliefs, nor understand their state of being. Because the situation is an adversarial position. They've never been to that plane or even tried to understand it. They don't have the lens to see what that other person can see. Unfortunately, a lot of religions do not encourage people to have an open mind. It's quite the opposite. It's more like you are a drone and you cannot live without a master S and his rules or commandments. So, naturally, they would be unable to see another side or different piece of the puzzle. Off topic. I've always found that weird about a lot of religions, which has powerful beings who can see a lot of things or everything, yet have some ridiculous rules and rituals that would serve them or their followers any purpose. I agree with your assessment of people who haven't questioned their beliefs being unwilling or simply unable to view the subject in another light. The same can be said of any belief. Maybe a weird analogy, but if you accepted without question that the sky was blue, and met someone from another culture who called the sky purple, it would be hard for you to understand how they could think that. Side note. This is actually a thing because some cultures have one word for what we've deemed two separate colors and as a result can't actually distinguish between those two colors easily or maybe not at all. However, I would argue that contrary to popular belief, at least speaking from my religion's perspective, Catholicism, believers are encouraged to question their faith and the reasons for why we believe what we do. It's called having an informed conscience and is essential. If you don't know why you believe what you do, it would be easy for someone to come along and change your opinion by telling you you're wrong because you have no evidence to the contrary. If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. Again, this principle could be applied to any belief. Well, they probably grew up being raised in a religious household, so that is the default position to them. In their mind it's logical to believe in God so they don't go to hell. Sure. I can kind of accept that. But all of us grew up in a household with a set of beliefs. Most of us still have the ability to understand the concept of other beliefs that aren't our own, even if we don't agree with them. It's not that they disagree with disbelief I'm curious about. It's the lacking ability to even understand how someone can not believe. Two main things. Some people really don't have a concept. It's like if I told you I never, ever have had a glass of water. I drank baby formula and mother's milk. I drank fruit juices, Kool-Aid, coffee, tea, and beer, but never, ever a serving of plain water. It's not true. But it's possible. This would be so unusual to most people that they'd have a hard time believing it just because I said so. They'd try to find exceptions. Or mistakes. Just so they could say, AHH. Okay. You don't like water. But you have actually drank at least a little. A lot of people just don't understand if you deviate from what they think is normal and how they perceive the world. The other thing is conversation. It's a common tactic of persuasion to ask questions like this. If they can get you involved in a deeper discussion, then they can debate/argue/try to gently convince you that maybe you have an incorrect assumption, and that you really should believe. The same way non-believers don't understand how can some people believe, even if you do, lol. I actually didn't met non-believer who didn't understand believing. We know why one believes. We just think it's irrational. I often don't really understand how someone could be religious in the monotheistic/Abrahamic sense. Undefined. I think the component you're missing is the faith/fear component. The religion I was raised in was a no questions blind faith sort of home. If you questioned, well, you didn't have faith. And a lack of faith meant God would punish you. If you took communion with questions in your here or sin, He could kill you on the spot, or make you sick. There was always the idea of other. Those that didn't believe. But God had already let them go. We were the chosen. And God had a plan for us. And if we questioned that, or His, it's really better not to. So that's why I am other now. Because I dared to question. And I am not dead yet. But if there is a hell, I will gladly go there over heaven. If the God I grew up with is in charge of it. I'm sorry that was the experience you had with faith growing up. I believe you did the right thing in questioning your beliefs and your faith. It's important to understand why you believe what you do and develop what's called an informed conscience. God doesn't want blind followers. Contrary to some people's beliefs. He wants you to choose Him. And that involves understanding why you should. Whatever that process looks like for you. I hope things are going better for you now and that you continue your beliefs. Religions work by surrounding followers with like-minded people. Church. Private schools. Families all work together to accomplish this. They brainwash children and establish dogma, which includes the idea that nobody becomes an atheist for legitimate reasons. They are always led astray by evil forces at work. The opposite does not apply. You have more of an understanding because religion is heavily intertwined with culture and society. Religions very often want to stifle exposure to other ideas. So people feel everyone believes just as they do. Most of what you know because you learned it from the people around you. Religions very frequently care what you say more than what you believe. They thrive on controlling the information. Personally, I'm pretty sure Santa Claus is an indoctrination in the idea of a magical figure who judges your behavior. And if he likes you, delivers goodies. It's practice.